In the bustling metropolis of Gangnam, Seoul, where dazzling lights illuminate the night and the days are filled with frenetic energy, a dark underbelly lurks. Beneath the surface of this vibrant city, societal issues fester, scandals proliferate, and an alarming number of mysterious disappearances plague the streets. This is where a dedicated group of individuals, led by the steadfast Captain Kang Dong-woo, fights a relentless battle against illicit drug trafficking. One night, after breaching the back door of a pulsating nightclub, Dong-woo and his team storm the club, their presence a stark contrast to the seductive atmosphere. The club's patrons, lost in a haze of intoxicating substances, are caught red-handed by the officers, who immediately shut off the music and illuminate the scene. Jae-soo, a female officer, swiftly detains the intoxicated revelers for violating drug control laws. Undeterred, Dong-woo delves deeper into the club's underground, drawn by a trail of smoke and the faint scent of burning flesh. A fire erupts from the basement, trapping individuals within its inferno. Dong-woo arrives just as a shadowy figure attempts to escape. A fierce struggle ensues, the two adversaries locked in a desperate dance of survival. As the figure attempts to flee, Dong-woo swiftly grabs his leg, snapping it with a decisive twist. Removing the man's mask, Dong-woo recognizes the fugitive as Jang Ho, a notorious drug trafficker. Back at the police station, Jang Ho collapses into a pool of tears, begging for leniency. He pleads that he is a first-time offender and insists that his family depends on his income. He implores Dong-woo to show mercy, warning him of the dangers of crossing powerful forces within the criminal underworld. 3 years pass. A glamorous young woman, flawlessly adorned with makeup, strides into a renowned nightclub, a hub of revelry and indulgence. She carries with her a clandestine delivery, her beauty masking a dangerous secret. The woman's destination is a luxurious VIP room, where she presents her cargo to a discerning client. Inside the room, Yi-hee, an employee consumed by the allure of narcotics, receives a chilling text message. Panic sets in, and she desperately rushes to the bathroom, desperately trying to purge the drugs from her system. She slaps her face, attempting to jolt herself back to clarity. Terrified, she retrieves a hidden phone and frantically calls Young Hwa, warning her to escape, for their lives are on the line. Yi-hee attempts to flee the club, but finds herself surrounded by intimidating guards. In a desperate bid for freedom, she risks it all, dashing through the relentless torrent of vehicles outside. Meanwhile, Yoon Gil-ho, a troubleshooter for the entertainment industry, ventures into a clandestine casino. He discovers Jin Young, unconscious and in the throes of drug addiction. Gil-ho carries her back to his car, but his escape is cut short by the sounds of a drug deal taking place nearby. He grabs a nearby club and confronts the dealers, delivering a brutal punishment for their defiance of his previous warning. He retrieves Jin Young and attempts to return to work, but her condition is far from stable. He learns from his associates that Yi-hee vanished from her shift the previous night, and now her whereabouts are unknown. He is unable to reach Young Hwa and is baffled by the disappearances of both women. Yi-hee, desperate to reach Young Hwa, hears a noise and peers through a gap in a closet. She then hears a sound behind her and turns to confront a knife-wielding attacker. However, the assailant is revealed to be Gil-ho. The next morning, Captain Kang Dong-woo cruises the streets on his day off. He witnesses an accident scene, and his attention is drawn to the intoxicated driver responsible for the collision. He learns that the culprit is the second son of the mayor, but Dong-woo refuses to show favoritism, regardless of the driver's powerful lineage. He confronts the young man, demanding to inspect his car's trunk. The man attempts to bribe Dong-woo, but he refuses. Dong-woo retrieves his car keys and rips open a bag of animal feed, revealing a package of narcotics. He delivers the evidence to the assigned police officers. The enraged young man punches Dong-woo, but he is no match for the captain's skill. Dong-woo swiftly subdues him and throws him in the back of a police car. Just as Dong-woo receives a phone call from Commissioner Moon, the commissioner arrives at the police station and encounters Dong-woo. Outside, Commissioner Moon reveals his true intentions. Using his authority, he refuses to allow Dong-woo to remain in this small town, demanding that the police chief transfer him back to Gangnam immediately. Back at his office, Dong-woo delves into the missing persons cases in Gangnam, only to find news of Yi-hee's escape. Suddenly, he receives a call from the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor shows Dong-woo a video of Yi-seo, revealing her distressing state of mental distress and self-harm. Entering his daughter's room, Dong-woo finds her unconscious, her arms marred by self-inflicted scars. He notices a tattoo etched into the wounds. Yiseo's mother appears, and a heated argument erupts between them. She accuses him of neglecting Yiseo, focusing on drug addicts while their daughter was being extorted by a group of women. She reveals that the incident on the rooftop was no accident, but rather a deliberate push, and claims these women have manipulated Yiseo to a horrifying degree. Back in his office, Dong-woo contemplates the situation. He receives a message from Yiseo, stating that she will be discharged the next day and wants him to pick her up. Meanwhile, Gil-ho is interrogating Yi-hee, but she remains silent. Understanding her concern for young HWA, he sets out on a search, ultimately finding her and bringing her to him. The next morning, as Dong-woo and Yiseo drive, she asks him to find Yi-hee. She's worried about her missing friend and fears something terrible might have happened. Dong-woo, preoccupied with work, dismisses her concerns. Frustrated, Yiseo expresses her resentment, feeling neglected and uncared for by her father. Their strained relationship is further tested by this disconnect. 1 year earlier, Dong-woo attends a family dinner with his daughter and her friend, Yi-hee. Yi-hee is visibly uncomfortable by his presence and attempts to leave, but Yiseo pleads with her to stay. Dong-woo gives Yiseo a gift card to choose food, while he engages in conversation with Yi-hee. Yi-hee criticizes Dong-woo, calling him a scumbag and demanding that he stop his manipulative behavior. She knows he doesn't care about her well-being, urging him to focus on his daughter instead. Dong-woo accuses her of being a bad influence on Yiseo and exploiting her for money, referencing the rooftop incident. Yi-hee, dismissing his claims as nonsense, leaves in anger. Yiseo, witnessing this exchange, berates her father before chasing after her friend. Back at the Gangnam Seoul police station, Dong-woo is approached by Prosecutor Min. She rehashes their past, offering harsh but ultimately supportive words. Together, they search for information about Yi-hee online. Dong-woo shows her a picture of his daughter and her friend. Prosecutor Min recognizes the tattoo on Yi-hee's arm, recalling a case involving a group of criminals connected to the dark web. These criminals were released from prison 6 months ago and have since established a surveillance company. Driven by the desire to bring these men to justice, Prosecutor Min revisits surveillance footage from the area. The prosecutor examines footage from the streets and notices a girl with a similar tattoo. Suddenly, she recognizes Gil-ho, a figure from the past. 3 years ago, during a raid on a drug-fueled nightclub, a boisterous man was involved in a brawl. It turned out he was a driver for call girls, fighting a rival who had dared to steal his clients. At the time, Captain Kang had dismissed Gil-ho, deeming him irrelevant and not worth wasting time on a driver. Back in the present, Prosecutor Min laments the inability to access the car's license plate or identification. The prosecution has blocked their access, deeming the evidence vital to their case. Meanwhile, a spiky-haired man stows his suitcase in his car and is startled by the sudden appearance of Gil-ho. He locks the doors, attempting to evade the confrontation. He mocks Gil-ho, believing himself safe inside the vehicle. Enraged, Gil-ho smashes the car window with a switchblade he's carrying. The spiky-haired man is tied up and beaten, but he refuses to reveal Young Hwa's location. Just as Gil-ho prepares for another round of punishment, the man finally confesses, revealing everything he knows. Gil-ho gets up and slams the trunk repeatedly, seemingly causing the man's hand to detach. Young Hwa, meanwhile, is forced towards a VIP room by a heavily tattooed man. She is horrified to find the room filled with people, a far cry from what she expected. The tattooed man grabs her hair and throws her to the ground. Suddenly, she sees someone approaching, wearing snakeskin boots, and is overwhelmed with fear. A party unfolds. Booze, drugs, and debauchery fill the room. Eventually, Gil-ho arrives, taking down the criminals one by one. Only Young Hwa remains, lying near a pool of water. But unfortunately, she has been tortured and brutally raped by the men, leading to her tragic demise. The Hangul cleaning service crew arrived at the haunted house to clean up the crime scene. The place was in disarray, as if it had just been the site of a wild party. Suddenly, the team leader searched the entire room and then asked where the victim's body was. While everyone was still looking for the body, the desk phone near the team leader rang. Meanwhile, No Jun Seo, the star of No Drama, just finished his performance and was surrounded by fans who presented him with flowers and gifts. He greeted everyone with a friendly smile, but after getting into his car, his face immediately changed. He yelled at them, calling them fools, and threw the gift bags into the back of the car. He just started driving when he received a call from his subordinate reporting that the forensics team couldn't find the body. He couldn't believe his ears, but his subordinate emphasized again that someone had taken Young Hwa's body. The truth was, the woman had disappeared. Jun Seo calmly told his subordinate to stop babbling and bring Jenny to him, then hung up without waiting for a response. Jun Seo arrived at a place packed with reporters and crazy fans screaming his name. He didn't rush to get out of the car, but took the opportunity to inhale some powdered bread to calm himself down. After savoring the delicious taste, he brushed away the crumbs on his nose with a bright smile and began his performance. He stepped out of the car, looking stylish from head to toe, greeting the enthusiastic crowd with the friendly face of a famous celebrity. Meanwhile, at an empty train station, a cleaning lady saw something strange on the bench and went to check it out. But beneath the thin blanket was the body of a young woman, her face full of bruises. She had clearly been dead for a long time. The sight terrified the cleaning lady, and she called for help. At a police station, the captain announced the formation of a special investigation unit by order of the commissioner. He stressed that everyone must be highly focused, as the public was paying close attention to their every move. Just then, Captain Kang Dong-woo entered. He was introduced as a support for the team based on the seriousness of the case, but his new colleagues didn't seem too interested in his presence. After giving his instructions, the captain left. Seeing his colleagues greeting him, Dong-woo asked about the autopsy or victim identification. The other person replied that he was grateful for his support, but no matter who called Dong-woo here, they wouldn't share any case information with him. So Dong-woo should just sit quietly, come and go quietly. After saying this, he smirked and went to have lunch with his colleague, leaving Dong-woo behind. But Dong-woo wasn't one to sit idly. He immediately called his subordinate, Jae-soo, to inquire about Jang Ho's health. When he got the contact information, he called, but Jang Ho hung up. He called again, only to be berated by Jang Ho, who said that he was no longer Dong-woo's servant. He then went to find director Kim Jang-ho to ask what was going on. Luckily, this man was still obedient and politely talked to Dong-woo. Jang-ho was a liquor seller in Gangnam, so he made more money than being a police officer. He agreed to be a police officer because it was his father's dream. Yet Dong-woo stripped him of his badge. Deep down, Jang-ho always wanted to be a gangster, but how many people could achieve two dreams in their lifetime? Dong-woo went straight to the point, saying he wanted to find some of his subordinates. He pulled out Jang Ho's appeal document and used his subordinates to intimidate him. Finally, Dong-woo met with two of his subordinates to ask about the identity of the person who brought the body to the train station and dumped it. With those bullet-like gazes, they revealed that it was Director Jun, a well-known figure in the business world, but they'd never met him. Many people were searching for him after the incident at the train station, but he was nowhere to be found. They said that he had two aces up his sleeve, but one was dead, so Jun Seo could only close shop and run away. Dong-woo then asked about the second woman, Jenny, real name Yi-hee, but she was only available for a price. Meanwhile, Gil-ho received a large bag of money from his subordinate. This man said that the entire Gangnam district was looking for Gil-ho. He suggested that Gil-ho turn over what they wanted and find an opportunity to escape. Gil-ho replied that Yi-hee would be taken to a safe place and he would find the bastards who dared to touch his girl. When he got back to his car, he received a call from Sai-chi. Later, Gil-ho went to meet the blonde guy but only cared if there was anyone in his car. Then he repeatedly punched the blonde guy, stopping only when Young Hwa's name was mentioned. He listened to his subordinate say that if he turned over Yi-hee, Jun Seo would give him everything. But Gil-ho wanted to negotiate directly with Jun Seo, just the two of them. Back in his car, his subordinate reported to Jun Seo, who was engrossed in a game. Jun Seo saw that the subordinate was rambling on about nonsense and warned him not to push his luck. Meanwhile, Yi-hee read the newspaper article about the body at the train station and was terrified. She tried to escape from the warehouse, but it wasn't easy. She looked at the windows, which had been boarded up for a long time. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Min checked the security footage and clearly saw the face of a man who had brought the body to the train station. She reported to the captain that Yoon Jik-ho, 45, from Gangnam, was the only suspect. His locations that day matched most of the crime scenes, and he was also caught on camera near the body. Hearing this, the captain agreed and wanted to make it a joint case with criminal offenses without further investigation. Unhappy with this decision, Prosecutor Min went to talk to the captain, but he also decided to make Gil-ho the perpetrator. Meanwhile, Jun Seo was beaten by his senior for letting Yi-hee escape. He then called his subordinate to arrange a party to find Yi-hee's whereabouts. Gil-ho returned to his car and saw that the window was shattered and Yi-hee had disappeared. He also received a text message, inviting him to a meeting at the Yeoksam intersection to negotiate with Jun Seo. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Tak told his colleague that they were all in the same boat, wanting fame and fortune without any waves. However, Prosecutor Min said that he wanted to investigate thoroughly, but he needed something to exchange. But Prosecutor Min didn't have anything to offer, did he? He wanted to speak frankly with Prosecutor Min. Meanwhile, at a wild bar, Yun slipped past and dropped some pills into a glass of liquor before congratulating Jun Seo on passing the prosecutor's exam. Jun Seo took out an expensive watch box and whispered to Yun that he wanted to find Yi-hee. Yun agreed and left. Jun Seo stayed behind, inhaled some powdered bread, and enjoyed himself. Meanwhile, Dong-woo promised his subordinates a reward if they found Jun Gil-ho. Suddenly, a prostitute shouted, and Dong-woo realized that Gil-ho was at the Yeoksam intersection, along with Sai-chi. That night, Gil-ho went to the meeting place but didn't find Jun Seo. The other subordinate kept asking for Yi-hee in exchange for an agreement. Gil-ho just said to give him a price, and there would be a trade. Seeing this, the subordinate texted Jun Seo about the current situation. Outside Seoksam station, Dong-woo and Jang-ho were sitting and hunting. Despite being chased away, Jang-ho stayed put and remembered that every time Dong-woo followed someone, he was by his side. He felt hungry and wanted to buy some food, leaving Dong-woo behind. Shortly after, a car filled with thugs drove past, and Dong-woo immediately followed. Inside, Gil-ho was furious that these people were hunting for a girl. His subordinate said he just wanted the girls and their damn videotapes. Hearing the mention of the tapes, Gil-ho froze for a moment. Seeing his reaction, the subordinate cursed him out and texted Jun Seo, reporting that Gil-ho wasn't with Yi-hee and didn't know about the existence of the video. Gradually understanding the situation, Gil-ho angrily accused the thugs of killing young Hwa. He was about to deal with the subordinate when the thugs arrived in time. Surrounded by them, Gil-ho grabbed a knife and prepared to fight for his life. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Min received a call from Jae-yun, reporting that they would be arresting the suspect tonight. He instructed them to wrap up the case before Saturday night, as Prosecutor Tak had requested. Meanwhile, Gil-ho fought alone against the thugs, and the subordinate directly sent a video of the fight to Jun Seo. After dealing with the thugs, Gil-ho had more opponents but was seriously injured. Just then, Dong-woo arrived in his car to rescue Gil-ho from the bloodbath. Meanwhile, Jun Seo sent people to capture Gil-ho. At the same time, the police told Prosecutor Min to move to a different location. He said that once the suspect spoke, things would become complicated. Yun said he just wanted to make things easy. Meanwhile, Jun Seo, dressed in dark clothes, entered a bar and met his older brother, Gang-soo. They reminisced about their younger days, filled with passion. Later, Jun Seo left. Then a young girl ran in to ask for Gang-soo's autograph. But when he let his guard down, she slashed his throat, leaving him lying in a pool of syrup. Jun Seo walked in and called Choi, agreeing to something. Meanwhile, Dong-woo asked about Yi-hee, but the other man didn't know where she was. Suddenly, two police cars attacked and blocked Dong-woo's path. Seeing the man get out of the car, Yun reminded him not to get in the way because it wasn't time yet. Dong-woo said, "What are you playing at?" Inside, Gil-ho saw his older brother being harassed and crawled out of the car. The police, seeing the criminal's miserable state, wanted to arrest him. Seeing this, Dong-woo used force to prevent the police from taking action. Seeing the situation becoming dangerous for both of them, Gil-ho wanted to jump off the bridge to escape but was stopped by police gunfire. Seeing this, Dong-woo pointed his gun at the police and threatened to shoot them if they took any action. Just then, Prosecutor Min arrived, seeing Dong-woo protecting his subordinate and confronting the police. Seeing this, Gil-ho jumped off the bridge and disappeared into the river. Dong-woo, seeing his brother injured and jumping into the river, cried out in anguish. At a coffee shop, police are investigating a new crime scene. Meanwhile, at Dongwoo Bridge, Prosecutor Min exacerbates the situation and leaves. Dongwoo calls his trusted associate, stating the need to form a team. Prosecutor Min questions the team leader's arbitrary orders, learning that a man was murdered in Gangnam, stabbed dozens of times with a knife. Gil-ho is found barely alive, dragged from a river. Prosecutor Min visits a bar to meet No-jun Seo, who's performing on stage, seemingly oblivious to her presence despite knowing he's expected. After his performance, Jun Seo apologizes for keeping her waiting. She directly questions him about the victim, Gang-soo. Jun Seo reveals he'd met Gang-soo for advice. Jun Seo takes responsibility for the incident, lamenting his failure to take Gang-soo home. He then questions her about her unauthorized visit, noting Prosecutor Tak seemingly doesn't know she's there. Jun Seo introduces Prosecutor Tak as a mutual friend and mentions Tak wants him to help with the investigation. Jun Seo borrows her phone, accessing a secure messaging app used by those in their profession. He suggests she might find something interesting if she sets the right bait, giving her Gil-ho's account. When asked about Gil-ho, Jun Seo remarks that wild animals often live longer than they expect. He explains he set up the game his way and urges her to stay in contact. Before leaving, Prosecutor Min asks about Mr. Choi, a name mentioned in the victim's call log. Jun Seo claims ignorance, explaining everyone in their field is either a CEO or a chairman. He offers her a box containing several million won, which she disgustedly rejects. Back at the office, she discovers that Jun Seo's criminal files were all approved by Prosecutor Tak. A colleague provides her with documents on Jun Seo and confirms the murder weapon found on the victim belongs to Yoon Gil-ho. Meanwhile, Dong-woo and his team arrive at a new, specialized investigation facility. Jae-soo notes its spaciousness but lack of natural light. Jae-soo provides a lead. Young Hwa-hee was with Hee-hee when she was abducted. They suspect Gil-ho's last call originated somewhere in Gangnam, possibly an arcade in Nonhyun-dong. Dong-woo investigates, discovering that Gangnam's underworld, disrupted by Dong-woo 3 years prior, simply went underground. Jae-soo mentions asking people in Gangnam's nightclub scene about a blonde man who quit his job on the day Young Hwa died, supposedly going abroad. Pressuring him might yield information about Yi-hee or Young Hwa. Suddenly, he posts a new picture in Korea. Dong-woo immediately investigates the location depicted in the picture. As Dong-woo leaves, Gil-ho enters a building to tend to his wounds. Yong-kwon calls Gil-ho, warning him about another death and reassuring him that Yi-hee is strong. The call flashes back to their first meeting, showing Yi-hee single-handedly fighting off 2 men to reclaim a tip. Impressed by her resilience, the owner hired her, with Gil-ho becoming her protector. Some nights, Yi-hee returned with a blood-splattered face and a wad of cash. Seeing the defiant girl selling herself to survive, Gil-ho asked her what she planned to do with the money. Yi-hee replied that she'd work until she could escape, to a place where she could relax until she died peacefully. Seeing Gil-ho's hand tattoo, she expressed a desire for one of her own, to cover her own repulsive scars. This strengthened their bond. One day, they found their madam, Beek, dead, leaving them with no choice but to close the establishment and find refuge elsewhere, leaving the girls under Gil-ho's protection. Meanwhile, Detective Dong-woo is searching for the blonde man's check-in location. Hesitating to enter, the blonde man suddenly appears. Jang-ho reveals the man is a dealer who drugs women in clubs and forces them into prostitution. They follow him. Min Seo-jin arrives at the train station where the victim's body was dumped and spots a suspicious woman. A colleague informs her that DNA found on Young Hwa matches the knife used in the recent murder. At the mention of Lee Young Hwa, the woman turns curious. When Seo-jin approaches, the woman hesitates before leaving. Seo-jin notices sweets and flowers on the bench behind, a memorial to the deceased. Dong-woo and Jang-ho pursue the blonde man to a building, once a den of vice, now marked differently. Dong-woo signals Jang-ho to remain silent and split up. Jang-ho finds a large amount of methamphetamine, but is discovered. He fights off the thugs, but as he catches his breath, one of them stabs him. Jai-soo arrives, using a taser to subdue the attacker, berating Jang-ho for his lack of caution. Gil-ho quickly subdues the blonde man. Inside, a live stream shows naked women. Dong-woo quickly covers them. Someone runs out, and he chases them. The person is apprehended. It's his acquaintance, Ju-yun. Back at the station, Ju-yun remains silent, infuriating Dong-woo, who punches him. Prosecutor Tak receives information about a vice detective selling drugs and fires him. Seo-jin expresses concern, believing he'll retaliate. Tak replies that's why he gave her the case to completely neutralize him. Tak angrily tells her to focus solely on her job. Seo-jin speaks to the team leader, urging him to confess for leniency. Ju-yun refuses to act without orders, then asks to call his family as his wife is worried. He mentions the harsh treatment in prison, then dials a number listed under No Jun Seo, sending a message stating he has much to say but will restrain himself. He smiles menacingly. Jun Seo receives a message. Tak has given up and wants to give his son a watch. He says he won't let Jun Seo die alone. Gil-ho, enraged, seeks Psyche, prompting his underling to call Jun Seo. After reporting the situation, Psyche greets Gil-ho, questioning how a wanted fugitive can move so freely. Psyche boasts about an upcoming party, gesturing towards the police station, forcing Gil-ho to flee. Ju-yun calls Prosecutor Min, requesting a private meeting. She immediately informs Dong-woo, but he ignores her calls. Even when she informs him in person that Ju-yun wants to confess, Dong-woo remains uninterested. Min Seo-jin knows Dong-woo has suffered for 3 years and urges him to confide in her, believing she can persuade Ju-yun, resulting in a swift resolution. Dong-woo, however, has lost faith, believing this is all Prosecutor Tak's scheme and orchestrated by Min Seo-jin, which she vehemently denies, stating she gains nothing from it. She insists she's the only one who can close the case, recounting seeing a woman burning incense at the bench where Young Hwa's body was found, fleeing after hearing the name Lee Young Hwa. Dong-woo, furious that a key witness escaped, demands clarification on Seo-jin's questions. Why was Dong-woo with Yoon Gil-ho that night, and why was he so concerned about him? Dong-woo explains Yi-hee, one of Gil-ho's workers, disappeared before Lee Young Hwa's murder. She's Dong-woo's daughter's best friend, finding her means saving his daughter. Jun Seo calls, inviting Min Seo-jin to a club with a gift he's found the missing piece. Seo-jin is surprised he found Gil-ho. He explains he targeted the right bait, knowing someone Gil-ho would willingly sacrifice himself for. She warns him against reckless actions, believing Ju-yun has confessed everything. Jun Seo reveals Ju-yun hasn't said anything yet, and predicts tomorrow's meeting will be cancelled. The prison is full of those who want Ju-yun dead. He says he wants to help her and asks her to arrive at midnight. Otherwise, he'll deliver the body to the police station. A man, whose teeth were broken by Ju-yun in a bar fight the previous year, is reminding him of this, leading to Ju-yun's brutal murder by a fellow inmate. Gil-ho receives a picture of a hooded woman, a warning that if he's late, her beautiful face will be slashed. Dong-woo, desperate to prevent this, knows Gil-ho will die if he goes. Prosecutor Min reveals Jun Seo gave her access to Gil-ho's chat logs. Despite her mistakes, she urges Dong-woo to trust her. They can reach Gil-ho through the app. Jun Seo introduces his friends to Jenny, and they gleefully watch a bound woman suffer. Outside, Gil-ho arrived at the rendezvous point and received a text message from Prosecutor Min Seo-jin, proposing a deal. She claimed Jun Seo had set a trap for him at Hyena, then sent him a picture of the flowers and the hairpin Yi-hee left at the subway station. She said she knew he wasn't involved in Young Hwa's death and urged him to survive to save Yi-hee. At that moment, Min Seo-jin arrived and went inside. Simultaneously, Sai-chi called Gil-ho and took him out through the back door after learning the prosecutor had entered the establishment. He left Gil-ho to meet her alone. Inside the elevator, Min Seo-jin continuously tried to convince Gil-ho to trust her. Eventually, the masked girl was found hanged. A gleeful Jun Seo filmed the scene. The person entering was Prosecutor Min. As expected, the masked girl wasn't Yi-hee. Min Seo-jin loudly declared that neither Kim Hee-hee nor Jun Gil-ho were there and left. The phone call to Gil-ho was still connected, and he arranged to meet the police at a Lucky Game Center. At the meeting point, Gil-ho recounted an incident involving VIPs summoning girls and forcing them to comply. Anyone who died had a cleanup crew dispose of the body. This crew handled the disposal of nameless, runaway, or orphan children who were forced to work. Gil-ho had retrieved Young Hwa's body before they arrived, leaving it at the subway station to prompt a police investigation. He revealed that Jun Seo's group was pursuing Yi-hee and whatever she possessed. Meanwhile, Yi-hee approached her close friend, Oh Jin-young, to borrow money and escape. She inquired about Jun Seo and warned Jin-young to stay away from the Coliseum if possible, as young girls weren't smart enough to survive there. However, Jin-young, ambitious to become a major player, dismissed Yi-hee. Elsewhere, Prosecutor Tak berated Jun Seo for defying the police. Jun Seo explained that his actions were necessary for everyone's survival. He had cleaned up the mess to keep Prosecutor Tak uninvolved and urged him not to interfere further. He also requested Tak to handle his subordinates, specifically Prosecutor Min and the police, as he didn't want the Coliseum disrupted that night. Prosecutor Tak told him to find the girl and the video footage, then dismissed him. Two frustrated officers seeking justice went to Assemblyman Moon Chul-sung. Dong-woo suspected Prosecutor Tak's involvement in the crime ring. Min Seo-jin also tried to persuade Moon, but he refused. She then pointed out Tak's upcoming transfer to the presidential office, suggesting it was a strategic move to eliminate rivals. Finally, he allowed the chief inspector to question Gil-ho. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Tak searched for Min Seo-jin throughout the office. Jun Seo discussed that night's gambling event with his associates, emphasizing its importance for investors in Korea and Thailand. He boasted of having prepared significant assets for the grand event. Jun Seo's bet was well received, boosting his mood. He reached for some flour to snort when Sai-chi abruptly entered, furious that his subordinate hadn't even addressed him properly. Sai-chi apologized and informed him that Jin-young, one of Gil-ho's girls, was there. She revealed that Yi-hee had visited her earlier that day. Meanwhile, Gil-ho was taken to Dong-woo's associates for safety. Dong-woo urged Jang-ho to be amicable with their new acquaintance. When Gil-ho stood up to leave, he was stopped, leading him to unzip his pants and relieve himself in the room, shocking everyone. Jin-young, bruised and battered, went to meet Young Kwon, only to be ambushed by Jun Seo's men. Jun Seo pressed a lit cigarette to Young Kwon's eye before beating them both. Dong-woo confirmed that all security cameras in the hotel were turned off the day he took Young Hwa's body out, as Gil-ho had stated. They explained that all cameras were shut down during deep cleaning, a monthly service provided by Hangul Cleaning Services. Attempts to contact the company proved unsuccessful. At that moment, Gil-ho emerged and questioned Dong-woo's knowledge of Yi-hee. It turned out that Mr. Kang Yi-seo's daughter had asked Dong-woo to find her after losing contact. Upon learning Gil-ho knew his daughter, he inquired about the tattoos on her arms. Gil-ho instead asked if he had ever seen burn marks on her arm, suggesting they were more likely cigarette burns than tattoos. He questioned what Mr. Kang did while his daughter was suffering before leaving. Alone, Gil-ho reminisced about his first encounter with Yi-seo, introduced by Yi-hee as her best friend. Seeing them with ink and a tattoo machine, Gil-ho tried to stop them. But a shy Yi-seo revealed a cigarette burn scar on her arm, asking him to cover it with a tattoo. Prosecutor Tak feigned regret, stating that due to team leader Ju's death, they had to drop the charges. He thanked Prosecutor Min. As a reluctant Min Seo-jin prepared to leave, she encountered Moon Chul-sung, who warmly greeted Prosecutor Tak. Back at the office, she informed Dong-gu that the chief inspector was trying to protect Prosecutor Tak. Their wives were college classmates. With the situation seemingly hopeless, Min Seo-jin revealed she had asked a Itin reporter to create a story. Gil-ho would be the catalyst. Exposing the prostitution ring to the public would cripple them. Dong-woo countered that exposing everything would ruin the lives of the children involved. They needed evidence, but Min Seo-jin knew a news article wouldn't reach international audiences. At the subway station, Yi-hee received a message from Jin-young on her phone. They were taking her to the Roman Coliseum. The video showed a battered Jin-young and Young Kwon hanging upside down. To save her friend, Yi-hee decided to go to the Roman Coliseum and inform Gil-ho. She messaged him that if she didn't survive, he should protect the others in the house. Yi-hee wanted to finish what she had started, as long as Gil-ho protected her family. When the police arrived, Gil-ho had already disappeared. Dong-woo called him and learned he'd gone to the Roman Coliseum to save Yi-hee. He explained it was a gathering place for wealthy individuals who gambled with people's lives, located in the basement of the Carmel Hotel. Simultaneously, Yi-hee, disguised as a beautiful woman, feigned a fall in front of a wealthy man's car to infiltrate the Coliseum, a venue where luxury cars were parked and Jun Seo was overseeing gambling. Inside the car, as Yi-hee attempted to leave, a thug apprehended her, but she was unfazed, having a hidden knife. Inside the Coliseum, 4 masked thugs, including the injured Young Kwon, were pitted against each other. While the fight was underway, Yi-hee slipped away, leaving the thug to be dealt with in the car. Inside, she found her close friend unconscious. Outside, police arrived but were blocked by security. Gil-ho also arrived, searching for his friend. Jun Seo also received intel about Yi-hee's presence. The police then made a daring move, ramming their vehicles into the scene. Amidst the chaos, Dong-woo and Jae-soo infiltrated the building first, while Gil-ho donned a mask and entered the arena to rescue his friend. Jun Seo demanded the video from Yi-hee, but it was gone. Enraged, he slashed her face with a knife before taking her to the viewing stand. He arrogantly challenged Gil-ho and sent his henchmen to fight him. Meanwhile, more police arrived outside. Jun Seo, upon learning of the police presence, grew furious. The wealthy patrons began to leave the gambling venue. However, one of the wealthy men in his car was live-streaming the event, orchestrated by Jun Seo. Yi-hee smiled, knowing she would win. As Jun Seo tried to escape, Sai-chi betrayed him, leaving him behind. Gil-ho arrived to claim Yi-hee. Upon learning of her supposed death, he repeatedly punched and massaged Jun Seo. Outside, Prosecutor Min, having discovered Yi-hee in the car, rushed to her rescue. Gil-ho, knife in hand, prepared to kill Jun Seo when Dong-woo intervened. After confirming Yi-hee's safety, he breathed a sigh of relief. Following the battle, life resumed its course. Yi-hee was under police protection, while Gil-ho remained at large. To everyone's surprise, no Jun Seo committed suicide. Prosecutor Tak made a statement to the press. Suddenly, the inspector's office confiscated Prosecutor Tak's belongings. An infuriated Mina Seo-jin confronted her superior, but Prosecutor Tak warned her to comply and leave to save her coveted job. Dong-woo, looking at Yi-hee, received a call from his daughter. The caller warned him against overstepping boundaries, stating he couldn't fight against him, then hung up. Yi-seo was kidnapped by a female gang leader. 2 years ago, Yi-seo was in the bathroom when she suddenly heard some bullies approaching. Fearing for her safety, she pulled a knife from her pocket and rushed out. However, the bullies weren't afraid and cornered her, threatening to burn her face. Yi-hee unexpectedly appeared, kicking the ringleader away. Yi-hee pulled out a knife, ready to attack the bullies. She wanted an answer from Yi-seo, whether or not she should intervene, but Yi-seo remained dazed and speechless. Later, Yi-seo wondered why the bullies acted that way. Apparently, Yi-hee didn't want to hurt them, but her parents had ensured Yi-seo's life was so comfortable that she couldn't defend herself against the bullies. Yi-hee was about to leave when Yi-seo spoke, expressing a desire to become stronger. On another occasion, the bullies attacked Yi-seo again on the rooftop. This time, she couldn't take it anymore and stabbed one of them in the hand. Yi-hee arrived, driving off the bullies. The ringleader, enraged, tried to push Yi-seo off the building, but instead, she fell. Yi-hee quickly cleaned the blood and calmed Yi-seo. Meanwhile, Detective Kang was searching, spotting 2 Hangul sanitation trucks. He rushed into the building to find the targeted room. However, Dong-woo found only a typical, cleaned room. At the same time, the protagonist woke up after the ordeal. Gil-ho sat up, noticing his wounds had been bandaged. Later, Detective Kang visited Yi-hee in the hospital to inform her that they had taken Jin-young to a rehabilitation center. Her drug addiction was apparently severe. Gil-ho had disappeared. He wanted to know the whereabouts of the footage because the perpetrators were hunting Yi-hee and the recording. However, Yi-hee, wise to the situation, had given it to someone else. The two went to a convenience store for Yi-hee to get some food. Dong-woo received a call from Jae-soo reporting Yi-seo missing and a search team was dispatched. The search would start from the previous location. Unfortunately, Detective Kang's conversation was overheard by Yi-hee. But she calmly paid him for the food and even instructed Dong-woo to take care of Yi-seo. Later, Detective Kang realized something was amiss and went to look for Yi-hee. He couldn't find her and immediately searched the back exit. The heavy rain and crowd made it impossible to track her. Dongwoo asked Jae-soo to check security cameras, but the heavy rain made the footage unclear. Jae-soo also had to review all the car cameras, which would take at least a few days. The next morning, the protagonist was on the balcony smoking when he saw Young-kwon. They sat down, drank, and Young-kwon gave Gil-ho a Dongseong ferry business card. Young-kwon wanted him to leave in 2 days as he had secured the job for him. The villain, Jun-seo, was dead, and Yi-hee was safe in the hospital. The protagonist wondered if things would ever end. He thought Jun-seo had really gotten what was coming to him. Meanwhile, a character labeled K witnessed Soo-in repeatedly beating the female protagonist through surveillance. The character K entered and reprimanded Soo-in, stating that this was merely a lesson for Yi-hee, not a permanent disfigurement. The female lead, it's known, had a pleasant and cozy time with the guys in Gangnam. To celebrate the launch of the new server, they're transforming her into a glamorous character. Meanwhile, Yi-seo was found by a security guard and safely returned home. The female lead here is sitting still, allowing Soo-in to cover her facial wounds with makeup. They're joking about the beating she just took. But Yi-hee mentions Yi-seo, recounting the words she used when she held the girl captive. Soo-in takes the car keys from a box, hands them to Yi-hee, and instructs her to leave through the back exit they used before. She says to prolong the situation, so leave now, go live with Gil-ho far away. However, the female lead knows that if Soo-in lets her go like that, they will kill her. She refuses to run away. Yi-hee should have done this sooner, but she's dragged it out too long. Later that night, Captain Kang sits anxiously in his car, worried about Yi-hee's whereabouts. Jang-ho calls, informing him of a link to a new deep web server. Upon viewing the live stream sent by a colleague, he sees writing on a windowpane. Dongwoo recognizes the building he had previously visited, a Hangul sanitation service office, noticing the same inscription through the window. Captain Kang is furious and drives there immediately. Meanwhile, the male lead is about to leave the port when he receives a voice message from Soo-in. Gil-ho abandons his things and runs off. Dongwoo is frantically searching for Yi-hee, but finds only strange women trapped in a red room. Suddenly, a thug attacks and knocks Captain Kang down, but Captain Kang quickly subdues the thug. Dongwoo notices that this is a surveillance camera room, and now Yi-hee is being forced to pose provocatively in front of the live camera feed. Suddenly, team leader Kang, due to a moment of inattention, was ambushed by the K-gang. The assailant found a syringe on the table and injected Dongwoo. While Dongwoo was dazed, he sensed someone approaching. Hak-gu assumed the other party had sent Yi-hee there, and had traded her for Dongwoo's daughter. Suddenly, the female lead smashed the window behind her. Yi-hee stood there, ready to decide her own end, and would never give those villains what they wanted. In the presence of those present and through a live feed, she vowed vengeance on the villains, promising to meet them in hell. Immediately, she leaped to her death. As the male lead arrived, he found Yi-hee dead on the car. Gil-ho, heartbroken, tried to approach the perpetrators but was stopped by the police. He then saw the K-gang's getaway car. He immediately pursued them, but unfortunately, was struck by another vehicle on the road. Gil-ho watched the villain's vehicle drive away helplessly, and gradually lost consciousness. Before Yi-hee died, she sent a voice message to her closest friend, Yi-seo. Yi-seo hesitated to call, fearing it might alter the victim's decision. The next day, team leader Kang was signing transfer documents, while a dejected Dongwoo carried a box outside. His daughter accused him of betraying them, blaming him entirely and leaving. That night, the male lead reviewed Yi-hee's photos for the final time, preparing to burn them, along with her phone containing her voice message. Gil-ho, furious, called Soo-in, demanding that she tell the K-gang's leader, K, to stick close to Mr. Choi. He stated he would speak to him after Mr. Choi's arrival. Prosecutor Seo-jin, while packing up her belongings, discovered a file with information about Hak-gu. She texted Hak-gu, arranging a meeting. Later, she met him at a dilapidated old restaurant. She presented evidence about Gangnam Trading Company and Mr. Choi, exposing Tak Jae-di's corruption and his connection to Hak-gu. However, Mr. Choi was unfazed, as he'd prepared for this. Suddenly, both of them heard the loud chopping of a chicken in the kitchen. In reality, Hak-gu had been observing and admiring Prosecutor Seo-jin. He then asked her about a potential alliance with his team. Several days later, at a nightclub, Captain Kang was picking up a female employee to take to a client. He also intended to learn more about this line of work. Dong-woo took on another assignment from the Regency nightclub. Captain Kang entered a VIP room and found the intoxicated woman. He was about to assist her when she suddenly used a shard of glass to stab him. However, the gold-haired leader in the room kept rambling on, so Dong-woo picked up the shard and used it to threaten him. He then took an expensive scarf from the leader and wrapped it around the bleeding woman's hand. Captain Kang carried the employee away, ignoring the gold-haired man's curses. In the car, he produced a strange pill and questioned the woman. Dong-woo learned that a crazy man was causing trouble and searching for neon throughout Gangnam. Suddenly, Soo-in appeared, dragged the woman from the car, and gave Kang some money. Captain Kang quickly photographed Soo-in and returned home to record the information from that night. Dong-woo saw numerous missed calls and messages on his phone. It turned out Captain Kang had visited Mr. Moon earlier to discuss something. Chul-sung criticized Yi-hee's actions. Dong-woo also realized how hard Mr. Kang must have worked to transfer Yi-hee to the countryside to cover up his clumsy handling of a witness. However, Captain Kang was causing too much trouble for the police force, so Dong-woo felt he should no longer be a part of it. Mr. Moon believed that Kang wasn't at fault. Yi-seo might have been friends with the deceased girl, but it wasn't Dong-woo's fault. Even if Captain Kang gave up his badge, it wouldn't bring Yi-seo home. Meanwhile, the protagonist was in a car, smoking and observing Mr. Choi's group of people transporting goods. As night fell, Gil-ho located their position. He opened the car trunk, grabbed gasoline, and doused it inside. Dione, who was arranging some candies at that moment, was terrified upon seeing Gil-ho, as he thought Gil-ho had left Gangnam. The protagonist unexpectedly found some unusual candy-shaped packages inside a pile of liquor bottles. He learned they were products from the Gangnam trading company about to be launched. Without hesitation, he poured the gasoline over the packages, regardless of Dione's efforts to intervene. Dione, frightened, revealed he was being forced by a wrinkled-faced supervisor. Once Gil-ho got the details, he immediately lit a lighter and threw it at the products. The next day, Prosecutor Seo-jin arrived at work, encountering numerous reporters eager to question her about her surprising promotion. Everything was normal until a man appeared, inquiring about Prosecutor Seo-jin's possible connections to Mr. Tak-ju Roman II. That evening, as she walked home alone, she heard Captain Kang's voice. He had come to provide her with information. Dong-woo produced a new drug called neon that was spreading through clubs. The investigation seemed stalled due to insufficient evidence. However, Prosecutor Seo-jin felt uneasy now that Kang was a civilian. Why wasn't Dong-woo trying to live a normal life instead of making speeches without evidence? The following day, Prosecutor Seo-jin visited Mayor Woo's office. She revealed she wasn't interested in the loan fraud case, but his wife was. She was there to offer insightful tips based on some interesting loopholes she had found. It turned out Prosecutor Seo-jin was now working for Mr. Choi and had given Hak-gu the land use change confirmation for Biotown. Mayor Woo had signed it and would send the remaining documents within a few days. Back at his office, Seo-jin was confronted by a furious Tak-ju Roman II. However, she wasn't intimidated and engaged in a debate with him. Suddenly, Tak-ju Roman II received a call from his secretary informing him that the prosecution had arrived, seizing all his belongings. Prosecutor Seo-jin, recognizing Tak-ju Roman II as a former superior, decided it was appropriate to escort him to the precinct. She produced the warrant for Tak-ju-i's arrest, charging him with corruption and bribery. He was utterly caught off guard. The prosecution officers were already there to take him away. Later that evening, Captain Kang returned to his apartment and heard a noise. He grabbed his fire extinguisher and stormed in, finding Jang Ho. The two went to the rooftop to talk about his daughter's disappearance. However, Dong-woo discovered that Yi-hee's account was still active, moving around Gangnam. He messaged the account to confirm if it was her. When he received a response, Dong-woo realized Yi-seo was currently hiding in Gangnam. They returned to Captain Kang's apartment, reviewing the collected information and introducing Jang Ho to the new neon drug. He noticed that the location of the drug corresponded with the tower Yi-seo was using. Captain Kang then returned to the old nightclub to gather more information. He spotted Soo-in and followed her. Dong-woo noticed Soo-in tending to the injured employee he had transported earlier. Together, they headed to a pediatric clinic at the Dichai intersection, but unbeknownst to them, The protagonist was observing from afar. After the employee was treated, they returned to the car. Suddenly, Gil-ho appeared, punching Dong-woo. It had been a long time since they'd seen each other, and Gil-ho landed several more punches, sending Dong-woo sprawling. Dong-woo asked for forgiveness over a promise to protect Yi-hee. He now regretted his involvement, and Gil-ho warned him to stay out of his affairs. The protagonist went to the clinic to inform Soo-in about Dong-woo's connection to Yi-hee's death. She learned of this for the first time, but Yi-hee had made her own choices. Gil-ho wanted to know the whereabouts of the K-man, who he heard was working for Mr. Choi and selling a drug called Neon. Soo-in, following Yi-hee's instructions before she disappeared, avoided giving him any information, especially about the video. The male lead, furious, smashed things and declared indifference. Gil-ho now only needed to find the location of that scoundrel. The following day, he found messages in the group chat revealing the location of their party celebrating the new neon drug. He arrived and observed the surroundings. A yellow car passing by aroused Dong-woo's suspicion. When Yi-hee's account became active, and the location of his daughter was identified as being there, Captain Kang stormed in. Simultaneously, the male lead was recording events, pinpointing Choi Hak-gu as the key figure. A message from Soo-in arrived, alerting him, and he immediately went to the scene. Meanwhile, Dong-woo entered a room where people were dancing, but there was no music. He put on headphones to find they were maintaining order, avoiding disturbance to nearby buildings. Captain Kang, while queuing, bumped into a girl. Someone stepped forward to attack him. The ensuing chaos prompted security to intervene, summoning reinforcements. Soo-in, at this point, was being directed by the K figure to take the girls they had selected and escort them away from the escalating disturbance. She noticed Yi-hee's account online and the presence of his daughter, which triggered suspicion, leading her to the girls. Soo-in realized the person vomiting up the drug was Yi-seo. Captain Kang was struggling with security guards when he saw his daughter passing by. He cleared the way and chased after her. However, Dong-woo was blocked by a password-protected door. He frantically pounded and screamed, even using his head, but in vain. He was left to watch Yi-seo leave with them. Soo-in led the girls away in a car, followed immediately by Captain Kang, who, disregarding his own injuries, continued pursuing his daughter. Suddenly, a car on the road struck Dong-woo. They were hired goons of Choi's to take care of the rogue cop posing as a driver. The goons, following K's orders, used baseball bats to knock Captain Kang unconscious and load him into a car. As they were leaving, a high-speed vehicle rammed into their car. When K looked in the rearview mirror, he saw Yoon Gil-ho. The protagonist painfully opened the trunk of their car to rescue Captain Kang, who lay there barely alive. Just as he was putting Dong-woo inside the car, K suddenly appeared from behind, sneering about Gil-ho's supposed connection to the police. K never forgot the scar on Gil-ho's face, a result of a confrontation 7 years prior at a PC Bang internet cafe. Gil-ho had hit K with a helmet, but K retaliated, only to be hit back with a spinning chair by Gil-ho. They still had unfinished business. Gil-ho pulled out a knife, and the two were about to fight when police arrived, forcing them to retreat. Later, Gil-ho stopped at a construction site and abandoned Captain Kang. Dong-woo stopped him, arguing that Yi-seo was now in his world, seeking revenge for Yi-hee. Gil-ho was unconcerned, stating that Captain Kang's daughter's disappearance was his own problem. Dong-woo should understand the pain of losing a loved one, he said. Captain Kang later visited a clinic to find information about Soo-in from the injured girl. He used Min-hee's phone to call Soo-in, questioning her about his daughter. Dong-woo begged Soo-in to release Yi-seo from a dangerous place. Captain Kang wanted to know why Yi-seo secretly helped those girls. Soo-in insisted the girls were there voluntarily. Yi-seo ignored him, while Dong-woo desperately called out for his daughter. Min-hee snatched back the phone and left. Enraged, Captain Kang grabbed Min-hee, demanding information about the one-eyed K and his involvement with the Gangnam trading company. Min-hee, knowing nothing, left. Captain Kang then hastily treated his own wounds and went in search of K. Suddenly, he saw Min-hee standing at the bottom of the stairs. She had revealed some information she'd obtained, but because she was high on drugs at the time, she couldn't remember the exact address. Dong-woo remembered seeing the nightclub earlier, so he immediately went there. Unexpectedly, the male protagonist was also there, searching for them. A strange noise caught their attention, and they cautiously approached the source. They entered a room, but found it empty. Captain Kang knew Gil-ho was there to catch K and the person running the Gangnam trading company. He wasn't particularly concerned, simply informing Gil-ho that Choi Hak-gu was the head of the company. Suddenly, someone appeared, wielding a fire extinguisher and striking Dong-woo. The tattooed man pinned him down for another blow. The male protagonist intervened, kicking the attacker away. The man got up, pleaded, then suddenly attacked Gil-ho. This tactic failed, and the man was knocked to the ground. Seeing the tattooed man taunt Yi-hee, Gil-ho raised the fire extinguisher, intending to finish him off. Captain Kang tried to stop him but was shoved aside. Terrified, the man used a remote control to open a glass door, revealing a warehouse full of the new neon drug. Meanwhile, Soo-in was contemplating recent events. Yi-seo showed her a video on her phone, the evidence they'd been searching for. Yi-hee had sent it to Yi-seo before her death, wanting it delivered to Captain Kang. Suddenly, Kay appeared, checking on the girls to see if any were acting strangely. He circled the room, returning to Soo-in. She thought he'd discovered something, but he only wanted to dismiss the girls he deemed unattractive. He warned Soo-in to play her part well, as Choi had promised him control of Gangnam if everything went smoothly. Suddenly, one of his men reported a call from Psyche, requesting a private conversation. The tattooed man frantically apologized to Kay because Gil-ho had infiltrated Hyena, was destroying everything, and planned to steal their neon supply. After hanging up, Psyche obediently completed his task and left. However, the male protagonist delivered a parting punch and a good night. They then tied up the tattooed man and planned their next move. Captain Kang discovered a hidden camera. Psyche had betrayed them. Soo-in then called, claiming she and Yi-seo were identical a family and asked for their help, arrest all the girls, and get them medical treatment. No matter the time or difficulty, never abandon them. Dong-woo should act quickly if he wanted to save his daughter from Yi-hee's fate. Captain Kang received the address and wanted to leave with Gil-ho, but the male protagonist intended to meet them, meaning one of them had to risk their life. Soo-in, anticipating this, acted first. She smashed a bottle over the head of a guard, causing panic among the girls. Meanwhile, the male protagonist waited, lighter in hand. 3 men arrived, using smoke and a gas to incapacitate Gil-ho. Soo-in told Yi-seo to leave because Dong-woo was coming. She tried to leave, but Kay appeared, attacked her, and locked her in a private room. Kay checked his phone, but it had been wiped clean. Soo-in had crossed a line, so he pulled out a knife, intending to kill her. He then bundled the girls into a van and called Choi, reporting that they had Gil-ho but not Kang Dong-woo. However, there were others more valuable than Dong-woo. When Captain Kang arrived, everyone was gone. Dong-woo called Soo-in and heard a phone ringing upstairs. He rushed up to find her barely alive and covered in blood. Captain Kang discovered the wound and tried to stem the bleeding to save her. Soo-in, in her dying breath, told him to take what she held, the video Yi-seo had asked her to deliver. Dong-woo retrieved a memory card from her stuffed animal. It contained footage Yi-hee had recorded of Choi and his accomplices testing a new drug. The despicable men had forced a girl to be the test subject. Captain Kang immediately called Detective Seo, explaining the situation. Seo had also gathered evidence from Prosecutor Min. Suddenly, he received a message with an unfamiliar address. Dong-woo went there and found Hyun Kyeon. She revealed that Seo Jin had mentioned a long-term game. It turned out Prosecutor Min's cooperation with Choi was a ruse to investigate the distribution scheme of the high pharmaceutical company and the assemblyman. Dong-woo asked Hyun Kyeon to call Seo Jin. He would send the video to Prosecutor Min, but asked her to wait for him. Captain Kang's daughter, Yi-seo, was there. Later, Seo Jin arrived at the Gangnam Group's VIP room. After a wait, Choi arrived. The party was delayed, however, as one person was missing. Prosecutor Min was shocked to see Tak Ju-il. Even more surprising was Hak-gu's announcement that the Minister of Justice position was intended for Secretary Tak. Seo Jin then showed everyone a flawless contract reviewed by lawyers and prosecutors. Choi then revealed a glass partition, behind which were girls selected by Hak-gu to test the drug's side effects. The girls were unable to see what was happening outside. The girls, one by one, entered the building and were forced to surrender their phones. A subordinate reported to his boss that Gil-ho had been dealt with, asking if he should take care of him. The boss instructed the subordinate that Gil-ho was his, and to simply keep an eye on him. However, when the subordinate returned, Gil-ho had regained consciousness and had beaten them up. Meanwhile, Choi Hak-gu told Min Seo-jae that she had wanted to participate in the entire plan. The prosecutor Tak's imposing demeanor infuriated her. Choi Hak-gu pointed to the girls for his partners to witness the drug's side effects firsthand. When the doctor arrived, Hak-gu introduced his new drugs, Leon and Leon Plus, slated for release in 2 months, claiming they would revolutionize the market. He had his men inject 10 doses of Leon into the fully conscious girls to observe the full range of side effects. While everyone feared the drug would kill the girls, Hak-gu stated that this was precisely why he developed Leon Plus, an antidote, his way of making a quick fortune. When a girl suffered a severe reaction, the doctor administered Leon Plus. While everyone celebrated the drug's apparent success, another girl experienced an even stronger adverse reaction. Meanwhile, Dong-woo outside was trying to infiltrate the building to rescue the girls. Inside, the partner complained, but Hak-gu blamed the varying reactions on individual differences. The partner was furious, having invested significant money and effort, only to see the project fail. He started to cause a disturbance, but a single glare from Choi Hak-gu's subordinate silenced him. Hak-gu demanded that his partner watch the entire experiment, claiming the trials were considered successful if the positive results exceeded 50%. He then ordered the continuation of the experiment on the last girl, Iseo. Seeing her friends incapacitated on the floor terrified Iseo. Min Seo-jae urged Hak-gu to finalize the contract to buy more time, promising that once the products launched nationwide in the coming months, everyone present would earn enough money to live like kings. The true purpose of the project. Hak-gu, finding this reasonable, ordered a temporary halt to the experiment. Outside, Dong-woo received a call from Gil-ho inquiring about the situation. Seeing security guards approaching, Dong-woo reported that Hak-gu was testing the drug on the girls and that Yi-hee had filmed the incident. Iseo was in danger. He hung up, then fought off the guards. Just as Dong-woo was about to be overpowered, Gil-ho arrived, set the guards on fire, and kept watch while Dong-woo went to rescue the girls. Hak-gu then urged his partners to sign the contract, binding them to the project. Prosecutor Tak, after reading the contract, was furious. Hak-gu's share was 51%, while everyone else's combined was only 49%, despite Tak's instructions to distribute the shares more cleverly to facilitate collaboration. Prosecutor Tak then addressed everyone, acknowledging they had risked their lives in this crazy, damnable project and questioning whether they would receive the commensurate reward. Dong-woo, arm in a sling, encountered the mastermind outside. Knowing that Dong-woo, a police officer, was searching for his daughter, the mastermind taunted him, suggesting his daughter didn't seem to care about him. He then summoned guards and challenged Dong-woo to climb the stairs to save his precious daughter. Dong-woo then produced the incriminating video footage, which Hak-gu simultaneously broadcast on a screen for everyone to see. Dong-woo asked if this was what they had been desperately seeking, Kim Hee-hee's video. While everyone was stunned by the brazen man, Hak-gu calmly urged them to continue with the proceedings. Prosecutor Tak moved to find out what was happening outside, claiming it was his prerogative. Dong-woo sent the video to a group chat including Representative Park, Mayor Woo, and the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Prosecutor Tak immediately watched the video, which showed him. Dong-woo shouted out Prosecutor Tak's name, along with Mayor Woo D-sik, the Ministry of Health and Welfare's Lee Han-pyong, and Representative Baek Jae-man. Minors are dying right before your eyes. Do you care? The mastermind ordered his men to seize Dong-woo. Inside, Prosecutor Tak wanted to tear the little rat limb from limb to retrieve his compromising video. He tore up the contract, demanding a 50-50 split with Hak-gu before leaving. Hak-gu lit a cigarette, warning Tak, "You dare speak to me like that?" Min Seo-jae only managed to utter his name before a bullet ended Prosecutor Tak's life, a warning to the remaining partners. He asked if anyone disliked the terms and conditions, and the partners silently signed and fled. Simultaneously, outside, Dong-woo and Gil-ho fought their way through guards to rescue the girls. As guards kept arriving, Gil-ho decided to sacrifice himself to allow Dong-woo to save the girls. The mastermind brutally mutilated Gil-ho, but Gil-ho retaliated, fatally wounding him before dying. Inside, Hak-gu offered Min Seo-jae and Iseo drinks. He knew Yi Seo's identity, questioning why such a good girl would befriend Jenny. Mentioning her friend angered Yi Seo, who attacked him with a weapon. However, she was quickly overpowered. Hak-gu also realized the two girls knew each other. Outside, Dong-woo called out his daughter's name. Hak-gu subdued Yi Seo and injected her with a drug to make her addicted, right in front of Dong-woo. While Minaseo Jai administered Leon Plus as an antidote, Hak-gu escaped. Dong-woo entrusted his daughter to Minaseo Jai and went after Hak-gu. Just as Dong-woo was about to shoot Hak-gu, Yi Seo stopped him. Seeing his daughter safe, Dong-woo lowered his weapon, only for Gil-ho, bloodied but alive, to shoot Hak-gu. He recalled his moments with Yi-hee, a strong, dreamy girl who longed for a peaceful world. After the brutal struggle, Dong-woo and his daughter visited the graves of their fallen friends. The video recording the drug testing of prominent political figures went viral, leading to the successful dismantling of the drug trafficking ring. The release of Leon and Leon Plus was indefinitely postponed. Minaseo Jai became a whistleblower, fully cooperating with the investigation. She recounted her journey, starting 10 years earlier when the former head of the Board of Audit and Inspection, TAC, approached her, ordering her to frame and prosecute an innocent man in a Gangnam disappearance case. Though tempted by money and fame, upon discovering the criminal organization's alliance with politicians, she realized her powerlessness and inability to defeat them. Minaseo Jai admitted to becoming an accomplice to their heinous crimes and willingly accepted the consequences. The next day, Dong-woo responded to a riot call. Hearing a victim describe a man with a baseball bat, Dong-woo followed the trail and found Gil-ho, breathing a sigh of relief before returning to duty. And that's the end of the movie review. Thank you for watching. Please leave your comments and suggestions below. Goodbye and see you in the next video.